talking about elastic audio, and elastic audio basically separates the timing from the pitch of audio. So if you have a record player and you speed it up, the pitch is going to go up. And if you slow it down, the pitch is going to go down. The tempo is also going to slow down, but it's also going to go down in pitch. Now, the reason why it does that is for reasons that you learned about in Mod 1. That is because your wavelengths, if it's a shorter wavelength, it's a higher pitch, and if it's a longer wavelength, it's a lower pitch. And that's how audio works. It's like, remember what I said a couple weeks ago, don't forget stuff you learned in Mod 1? Well, it applies all the time. Don't forget stuff you learned in Mod 1. So if I have a faster waveform, it's going to be a higher pitch. Even if I speed that waveform up myself, it's going to go up in pitch. If I slow the waveform down, it's going to go down in pitch. So if I have a record of me playing la 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 la, and I start slowing down, it's going to be going down slow like this, and then I'm going to be talking really slow. And if I go faster, it's going to go up in pitch like this, like that. That's how audio works. That's normal. I know it sounds like a special effect, but it's actually a very normal part of it. This is actually physics at work. No, there's no like secret about it. There's no weird stuff going on. It's just physics at work, even though it sounds like a weird special effect. What is the special effect that's weird is when you can slow things down and speed them up without affecting the pitch. Now, this is actually why Ableton Live became famous in the beginning when it was first released back in 2001. The whole reason why it became, there was two reasons. The reasons why was, one reason was because of the layout. It was set up in a really interesting way for live performance. But the second reason was because you could take audio that was any like different tempos and you could throw them in there as loops and it would automatically work together. They would automatically just put things in the same tempo and just work. And that was really cool. And it was the first time that anything had ever done that, where it would have a beat loop that was 120, and then a beat loop that was 110, and then a beat loop that was like 90, and you could put them all together and it wouldn't change the pitch. It would just change the tempo so they would fit together. Nowadays, Ableton does it, of course, still. Pro Tools does it, and Logic does it. Pro Tools, just so you know, Pro Tools sounds the best. It sounds amazing, 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 amazing. Ableton Live is also really, really, really good. It sounds great. It sounds good enough. You don't have to go to Pro Tools to get a good sound. It sounds good in Ableton Live, but it's not quite as good as Pro Tools. Logic still sounds like garbage. Sorry, Logic. You don't sound good when you're doing flex time stuff. Eventually, they'll probably get the algorithms working better, but if you're doing flex mode stuff in Logic, you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't sound great. You can hear all the artifacts and the weird stuff going on with it. Whereas with Pro Tools, it can sound really smooth, and Ableton Live also sounds very smooth as well. Now, here's the secret about this though, is the further away from the original tempo you get, or the original audio, the further away you get, the weirder it's going to sound. So for example, if I have something that's at 100 BPMs, and I slow it down to 98, it's still going to sound pretty good, or really good. If I slow it down to 90, it should still sound good. If I slow it down to like 60, which is a lot, it's not going to sound good anymore. It's going to sound weird. No matter which program you're in, it's going to start sounding weird. So just keep that in mind with any of this stuff. It's all magic, but there are limits to the magic. And that's really important when we get into this, when we start working with this stuff. Really, really important that you remember there are limits to the magic. It's not just like everything's going to sound amazing. And why doesn't this sound amazing? Oh my gosh. No, it's not like that. You can only go so far with it. Okay, cool. So let's start by setting things up, and let's talk about this time-based selector. Time-based selector is something that really only Pro Tools has. It's a really cool feature, but only Pro Tools has it. And in order to show it to you, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this track right here. So now I've got the same thing on both tracks. I'm going to go ahead and hide this one and make it inactive. We don't really need that one right now. So this is me counting. If you forgot about yesterday, let's go ahead and play this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, there's me counting. Okay, it's exactly the same on both tracks right here, both channels here. So what the time-based selector is, first of all, the time-based selector is this thing right over here in the corner. Time-based selector right there, boom, samples and ticks. Now, really, by default, audio tracks are samples, and anything MIDI related is ticks. Really what this is doing is the samples mode follows your clock. Like here, let me pull up the clock up here. Show sub counter, there we go. So the samples mode follows the time clock right here. See this bottom one? 1, 2, this is my seconds, minutes and seconds. The ticks mode follows the tempo up here, the beats and bars and beats, okay? 1. So that's also what my metronome is doing. My metronome is following the bars and beats. So if I adjust this tempo of things, here, I'm gonna go ahead and mute this one. And we're gonna separate these out. So one of them is gonna be ticks and one of them is gonna be time-based. So I'm gonna change this one to ticks mode. And you're gonna see if I slow this down, right now we're at 90 BPMs. If I slow this down, when we take it into, when I take it to like 80, this one here is gonna slow down with that 80 BPMs. Whereas this one down here, which is still in samples mode, is gonna stay the same speed. So let's go ahead and just listen to how that works. I'm gonna double click on this to change the tempo. I'm gonna change it to 80 BPMs and watch what happens. This one's spread out, whereas this one stayed the same. Let's go ahead and listen to this. 1. Whoops, hold on, let's put these both on, there we go. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, 8, 10, 9, 11, 10, 12, 11, 12. Right, I'm smiling because that sounds like a Steve Reich song or something, some kind of Steve Reich piece of music. So this is what we just did, was we literally just put this one into ticks mode and this one stayed in samples mode, and I just changed the tempo. If I change the tempo back, it'll go back to what it was. Back to 90, boom, and now they're both lined up again. You can kind of see that. So let's take a look at the notes and see what we wrote down in the notes, what I wrote down in the notes before. So this one here is the samples mode. This is the ticks mode down here, samples and ticks. Samples by default is audio tracks and aux tracks, although aux tracks don't matter because there's nothing recorded into aux tracks. It really just matters for audio tracks. Ticks mode is the default setting for MIDI tracks and instrument tracks, and they're both use MIDI, so it affects both of them immediately. So with ticks mode, this is relative timing. The track timing follows the tempo. It's relative to your clock. Samples mode is absolute timing. It follows the clock. So the track timing follows the clock, not the BPM. So just basically, this is just a drawing of what I just showed you here. If I have the blue and the green, the blue up top is samples, the green down on the bottom is ticks. So if I spread this out, the samples up top is going to stay the same. You see how it stays the same right there, whereas the tick spreads out. These numbers across the top are seconds, and the pink ones are seconds, and the black ones are bars. So if my bars spread out, the green ones are going to follow the bars, and they're actually going to stretch. See how they stretch to get longer? See how this one's longer than that one right there? They stretch to kind of fill in all the gaps and stuff like that, whereas the blue ones stay exactly the same. So let's just go ahead and do that one more time. Here, I'm going to slow it down even more, or I'll speed it up this time. Let's speed it up. Let's speed it up to 115. Boom. So now this top one here sped up. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 6, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9, 7, 10, 8. Right, see how that worked there? Good morning, Barb. What's up? So what's up, Joseph? How you doing? All right. So that's really like what we're dealing with here with this ticks and the samples. Now, when is it good to use ticks and when is it good to use samples? Well, basically, just use the default setting for your track. Whatever the track default setting is, just use that. It's going to be fine. But what I recommend is if you're using Pro Tools to make beats, if you're producing your music in Pro Tools, use ticks on all tracks, because then if you speed up or slow down the tempo, everything's going to follow it. If you're doing ADR, Foley, voiceover, stuff like that, use samples because you don't really need to use a tempo when you're doing sample stuff. If you're recording bands, it really depends on what they're recording. If they're recording a lot of electronic instruments and guitars and stuff like that, you might want to use ticks on everything. Really, if you think you're going to do any kind of tempo changes or anything like that, use ticks. Now, for using music production, okay, here we go. Menu, setup, preferences, processing. So if we go in here to menu, setup, preferences, let's go to our processing over here. This is what I was looking for yesterday. Here we go. Enable elastic audio on all tracks. If you are producing music with Pro Tools, you want to have that turned on by default. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off for now because it was driving me nuts. And then what's the other one? Set of preferences, editing. Okay, so editing over here, new tracks default to tick time base. You want to go ahead and turn that off. Again, unless you're producing in Pro Tools. If you're producing all your beats in Pro Tools, then you want to turn that on. This one here, new tracks, default to tick time base, and also processing, enable elastic audio on new tracks. You're going to want to turn those on. I'm going to turn them off right now because we're not actually producing beats in Pro Tools right now, but that's what you want to do. And if you kind of forget that part, it is in here in the notes. Just go back and read through your notes, do a search. You can actually search in these notes for stuff and go ahead and do a search for the word like music production or elastic audio or whatever. All right. So one other thing to keep in mind with all this is here, let's go ahead and zoom in. And if I make this into one long audio file, so this is one long audio file now, and if I change the tempo, what's going to happen is it's not going to actually adjust the timing inside of here. And that's because with ticks mode, even though it's relative, it's only relative to the start times of all your clips. So if I change this to 90 BPMs, or if I change it, it's at 90 now. If I change it down to 60, the start time changed here. So it did move everything over, but you notice that everything is the same inside here. Let me go ahead and undo that. And let me make another duplicate of this. What is up, Jonathan? How you doing? Jonathan, I need some assignments from you. Make sure you getting some stuff turned in there, buddy. All right, so in here I've got 3 different ones. Let me go ahead and make them all, let's make them all medium. So the one on top here is gonna be ticks. This one here will be ticks again, but I'm gonna go ahead, oops, I can't do it, ticks 2. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and stretch it out so it's one clip. And this one here is gonna be samples. So if I go in here and I do this, okay, so let's go ahead and change the tempo here. Double click on this. Oops. Double click it. There we go. And change it to 60 BPMs. Now you'll notice that these two here, the top 2, the start point is the same, but this one here, all of the clips spread out. Whereas with this one here, the counting in the middle stayed exactly the same. So let's go ahead and listen to this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8, 6, 9, 7, 11, 12, 12, 9. Right? Super weird sounding, right? But that's like what this stuff does. Now, why are we talking about this? It's not super important. You're not going to use it all the time, but it is useful to understand how Pro Tools works with this stuff. So just keep in mind what this is doing in here, because depending on what you're doing with your Pro Tools session, let's say you've got like a vocal, like a spoken word thing, and you want to put some music behind it, and you want the music to speed up and slow down, but you don't want the vocal spoken word to speed up or slow down. Well, all you do is you just take that vocal spoken word track and put it into samples mode, and it will no longer speed up or slow down or anything like that. All your other stuff can speed up and slow down all day long, but that one track will stay the same, whatever's in there in the clip. Okay, so it's also important to understand this because when we start messing around with elastic audio here and we start changing the tempo, if we have audio stuff and we want everything to follow it all correctly, we need the audio to be in ticks time mode, not in samples like the default. The default is samples mode, and that's great for most things for just recording stuff. But we need to make sure that if we are speeding up and slowing down the tempo, then we need to make sure everything is in ticks time base. So that's why we're talking about ticks time base right now. All right, so okay. One last thing. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, and this is the TCE tool, and this is kind of the predecessor to the Elastic Audio. Okay, I've been using the TCE tool since, I don't know, 2000, 2001, something like that. Back when I first got Pro Tools, I started learning about it. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I can use that for stuff. And eventually I started using Ableton Live. Like around that time, I didn't really use Ableton Live for production back then because you really couldn't when it was first released. So I was still doing all my productions in Pro Tools, and I was using this TCE tool for stuff. Eventually, when I started using Ableton Live for everything, for all my productions and everything, I stopped using the TCE tool as much because I just wasn't using Pro Tools the same way. So let's go ahead and take a look at the TCE tool. I'm going to go ahead and delete both of these tracks because we no longer need them. And delete, get out of here. Gary, how's it going? Thank you for the reminder. Yes, your SAE COVID grant. We are going to talk about that. During Zoom for sure. Yep. But you need to make sure that you do that today. Remember, that's on for today. And like you should have gotten that email yesterday. Hopefully you did something about it yesterday. But if not, you can still do it today. The deadline is tomorrow, so don't wait on that. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for the reminder. But we'll be talking about that and some other stuff, the survey and all that stuff in the Zoom class. Okay, so in here, let's take a look at this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one the original, the OG Tony Vox. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new playlist in here. And we're going to go ahead, let's duplicate this. And we'll call this one the TCE Tony Vox. TCE Tony Vox. So with the TCE Tony Vox, hold on a second. Let's make that a capital E. TCE with a capital E. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and stretch out each one of these a little bit so we get all of them stretched out. Now here's how we do this. It's actually pretty easy. Just make sure up here on your trim tool that it says TCE, and what this stands for is time compression expansion. So I'm just going to go to each one. I'm going to stretch it out. I'm in slip mode, my modes, and I stretch it out, boom, like that. And you see how it just made that longer? Now, when you are doing stuff with your TCE, what I recommend is that you get right up to the beginning of your sample here and cut it right at the beginning, because if you start it right here, it's going to stretch that silence as well. So it's going to throw off the timing. So I recommend actually starting it from here. And to be honest, you can actually cut your audio in the middle and stretch it from over here, which is interesting, especially if you have like a transient in the beginning. So number one, I'm just going to leave it the same. But number two, I'm going to keep that transient there like that. And I'm just going to stretch the end. Let's go ahead and we'll listen to that in a second. Here's 3. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's actually stretch the whole thing. I'm going to zoom in on that. Make it nice and big. Zoom in using my brackets. Go over here. You notice I'm using the Smart tool. Okay, and drag this up over like this. There we go. Boom. And let's see, this is 4. Let's keep the beginning, the F part of the 4. It's like right there, I guess. Let's see. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to sound like. We're going to check it out in just a second. Drag it over. And there's a 5 as well. What is up, Ahmad? Ahmad, you're a bit late there. So I'm going to dock you 15 minutes. We can talk about that in Zoom if you want. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take a listen to this. I'm going to turn off this metronome. We don't need this. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're on your way to campus. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. All right. Never mind then. We got you. I got you. I got you. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so listen to how this stuff sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hear how it sounds super robot-y? Well, the reason why it sounds so robot-y is because of the algorithm that we are using to stretch these things out. So let me go ahead and change that. And we can change the algorithm up here under Setup, Preferences, Processing, TCE plugin here. What is up, Dempsey? How you doing? Okay, connection issues. All right, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt there, buddy. All right, so over here, Avid Time Shift. Let's go here. Let's do this for male vocal. Okay, so we're going to use this, and let's see if it sounds a little bit better on the second half over here. We got this one here. Let's get rid of this fade here. What is this? 6, 6. Okay, so I'm gonna click it right here at the S, and then let's see. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and stretch this out, and then 7. Cut that first part off there and stretch everything else out. Same thing with the 8 here. Zoom in a little bit so I can make sure I get it right here in the beginning of the 8, the E sound of the 8. Zooming out. I'm using my brackets to zoom in and out. Okay, here's the 9. Stretch you out as well. Boop. Let's listen to that, what that sounds like. Go over here to 6. Let's listen to these first couple over here with the old one. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it still sounds 8, like 9, 10, right? 11. It still sounds weird and granular like that, like what I call artifacts. And that's because we're slowing everything down. Remember what I said, if you slow it down like enough, it's going to sound weird. And that's what's happening here. It sounds really weird. So what we're going to do here is let's make a copy. Let's go back to the OG Tony Vox. Let's make another duplicate of this. We'll call this one TCE2 Tony Vox. And now let's go ahead and speed these up so they're even faster. So I'm going to go through and cut off the beginning here. And I'm just going to speed these up. Let's use the same one. And I'm going to speed them up by moving them this way, making them just shorter in general. And you can see that because I'm using my Smart tool, it's actually really easy to go in here and do stuff with these. Super, super easy to just move these around. Okay, let's listen to these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now I'm going to play the other ones for you here and just notice how those actually don't sound so bad, whereas these sound really weird. 1, 2, right? The reason why these sound weird and the other ones sound okay is because making things more compressed sounds better. Because when you're stretching stuff out, remember that the computer is having to fill in the blanks. It's having to actually put information in there. It's having to take those waveforms and stretch them and say, not only is it's like stretching them, it's actually, well, let me rephrase that. It's not actually stretching them. It's actually putting more of the waveform in there, because remember, if you stretch it, it's just going to make it lower in pitch. This has to actually fill in the gaps. Imagine if I have a picture. Let's see. Let's go find a picture. Open up Safari and let's find a picture of a cat. Low res. A low res cat. See, all sizes, small. Small cat. It's just cat. There we go. Okay, so here's a cat that is 150 by 150. Which one's the cutest cat? Oh, this one's a cute cat. That's photoshopped. Grumpy cat. Aw, R.I.P. Grumpy cat. Okay. So we take this grumpy cat picture here. There it is. There's a grumpy cat picture, and I make it bigger. Can I make it any bigger? I can't make it bigger. You notice how it gets like grainy? It's not like the same. Here, let's go back over here to Grumpy Cat. Let's find a Grumpy Cat. Grumpy Cat. And go to, let's get a big high-res one. Okay, so here's a high-res Grumpy Cat. If I take this one and stick it up here, look how big it is. Look how clean it is. How beautiful. And we can even zoom in on this, right? How beautiful the picture is right there. You can see how clean it is. Whereas this one here, look how grainy it is and fuzzy looking, right? Well, that's because we took a small image and we made it bigger. Well, that's exactly what we're doing here with this audio. We're taking this audio by stretching it out. We're basically taking a small amount of audio and we're stretching it out. If I take this and I smush it together, it's like compressing it in, it's smushing it together. It's like if I take this giant photo over here and I make it smaller, it's still gonna look really clean and nice. See how small that is, but it looks really clean and nice. If I take this one, put it back to its original, size, like this, it looks okay. There's its original size right there. That's how small it is originally. This is this one here. This one's even smaller than its original size. That still looks clean. So when we take stuff and we make it smaller or smush it together, it's actually easier to do because the computer is then just throwing out pieces and whatever, it doesn't matter, it's okay. But if you take things and you make it longer, if you stretch it out, if you try to make it a higher quality from something low quality, or you make it like a bigger picture from a small picture, it's not gonna work the same. So just remember that with all the stuff that you're doing with audio, that this stuff, anytime you're making it longer, anytime you're making it more high quality, or anytime you're making it like bigger, it's not gonna be as nice sounding. You're gonna get artifacts, you're gonna get weird, strange things in there. So making it smaller is a lot better. Okay, and that's what we notice here when we listen to this. 1. That sounds okay. Here's the original. 1. Right? But here's the one that was stretched. 1. Right? Sounds like garbage, okay? So that's something, that's basically elastic audio in a nutshell. Elastic audio, TCE in a nutshell, TCE time compression expansion. You can expand it, you can compress it, but just be aware if you're compressing it or expanding it. Now, one thing about TCE is that you've noticed that we're doing it to the whole clip. If I want to keep the timing of these clips here, let's put on my metronome here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? If I keep it like this, if I have these all separated into their own clips, I can use TCE to kind of like make them longer. But if I go to my original one again, let's go to the original. Let's put this back to 90 BPMs as well. It's too slow at 60. And I wanted to, like, let's duplicate this again. Let's call this one TCE3 Tiny Box. And if I take this first one, let's just make one long clip of it. If I put this into TCE mode and I stretch the whole clip out, look what happens. Everything gets spaced out, so it no longer follows that tempo. But if I go in here and I use my OG and I stretch them out one by one, well, they're still gonna follow that original tempo. The start points are still at the same place. And this is really where TCE starts to differ from elastic audio, because with TCE, if I go in here and I stretch it out, it goes ahead and it stretches everything out, right? Like that, right? It makes everything like this. So here, let's listen to that. 1, 2, right? If I keep the metronome
3,
on,
4,
it's
5,
right? It doesn't follow that tempo at all. Okay. Well, with elastic audio, once we get into it, we can actually use the tempo, speed things up, slow things down, but keep the clip, and everything inside of the clip will follow the tempo as well, right? But in order to do that with TCE, we just have to make sure that we go in here and we do it one clip at a time. That's just how you have to do it. Okay. So let's look at the notes on the TCE tool here a second. So the tool adjusts the time length of the clip. Like I just explained, it creates a new audio file whenever you use it. This is really important, is that it's actually creating new audio files. You see all these new audio files on here? I wasn't actually showing these clips, but here, let me just go ahead and stretch this one out. It just created this new clip. Where did it put it? Where's the clip? Where are you? There you are, right there. Boom. And here, let's stretch this one out a little bit. Okay. So you can see it's creating a new clip. Remember, the bold type font in here means it's an original file on my computer. So this is a whole new audio clip. So if you're using TCE a lot, it's going to create new audio files on your computer. For something like this counting. I mean, this audio file on my computer, let's go ahead and find it on my computer. Where are you? Reveal in Finder. This thing is 231 kilobytes. Who cares about 231 kilobytes? Nobody. I used to care back in the 90s about 231 kilobytes. But not anymore because I don't live in the 90s anymore. So you don't need to worry about little small things like this. And in general, with your hard drives and stuff, if you're doing everything on an external hard drive, or if your computer has a nice big 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte hard drive inside of it, you don't need to worry about little edits like this. You just can go ahead and do them. And then later on, you can clean things up. If you're like doing sample libraries, or you're trying to keep things small intentionally for some reason, like to send stuff to your friend or whatever via email, then you do want to pay attention to what you're doing with your TCE tool. But otherwise, you don't really need to worry about it too much. Okay. It is the old version of Elastic Audio, which I mentioned before, or Warp, Flex Time, whatever. It adjusts the timing without affecting the pitch. It is useful for adjusting the overall tempo of loops. Let's throw a drum loop in here. Let's go ahead and grab a drum loop from my computer. Let's go in here. Oh, let's do it here. Go in to my where are you? Workspace. Okay, so I'm going to go in here to my workspace. Do I have any catalogs in here? I do have catalogs in here. Okay, cool. Yep, Analog House. Here we go. So we'll go in here to this one, and let's find, what was he doing there? Let's do some percussion loops. Auto preview, there we go. These are just some like little loops. Oh yeah, we definitely want that one, right? Absolutely, 100% we want that one. Okay, so I got this loop in here, and the loop is at 126. So let's go ahead and let's change my counting to 126 as well. So drop that in there. Let's take our overall tempo, go back to my OG Vox, and change this to 126. Because it's in ticks time base, the counting is going to follow that 126. I'm going to move this over so it starts right here. Let's solo it out so we can just hear it real quick. Okay, cool. So let's unsolo it so we can hear my beautiful counting on top.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Awesome, great. So we can see actually with this beat on here, suddenly my counting gets so much more interesting, right? Okay, so let's do this. Let's say, for example, that we want this beat. We've got our tempo, and our tempo is, here, let's say that's our beat. And our tempo is not 126, our tempo is 120. So it looks like this. The tempo, this beat is still at here, let me go ahead and make a loop here. The beat is still at 126. I haven't changed the beat yet. So here's what the beat would sound like with my metronome. Right, you hear how it's like a little bit off. It's not like completely off, but it's a little bit off. Well, what I can do is I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna cut this using my and I'm gonna cut it and shape the tempo of the beat so it fits the tempo of my song, okay? So my beat is at 126, my song tempo is at 120, and I'm gonna make my beat fit 120 BPM. So in order to do that, what I gotta do is I gotta find wherever I wanna cut the beat. So I got the beat starts right here, and I wanna cut the beat here at the end. Now, the easiest way to do that, I'm gonna I'm gonna mute my click track, is I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna listen to it and see where is my, where does the beat repeat? Okay, there's where the beat repeats, right there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? That right here, this one right here, is my kick drum. That's the downbeat of my next measure. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut that kick drum. The easiest way to get to that kick drum, there's two ways I can do it. I can zoom way in and I can say, here's where the kick drum is right there. And I'm gonna cut it, Command E, cut, boom, right? I can do that, or the other way that's really cool, this is something that really only Pro Tools has. Ableton Live kinda has it, but Pro Tools does it better, is this one right here. See this one right here? Tab to transients. Tab to transients, you should just have it on all the time. I think it's on by default. It can be your best friend. It's so awesome for editing audio, for finding where the downbeat of something is. And I really, really feel sorry for anybody who's not here right now to hear me talk about tab to transients, because they're missing out big time. This is really awesome, this button right here. So there's two things really you want to have turned on right now for this to work, is tab to transients, turn that on. And you also want to have link timeline and edit selection. So I can link that up, turn that on. Now what that does is it means that anything I select down here, it's going to follow up here in my timeline. See that? See that right there? Okay. So if I want to loop this clip, I just select it and now it's going to loop the clip. Right, I got my loop playback turned on and we're good to go here. Okay, so that's that, but I don't want to loop this whole clip because this clip doesn't really make any sense. It's not like a real nice tidy loop. I want to make it into a nice tidy loop. So what I'm going to do is I know this is my downbeat of my second bar, so I'm going to click right here. I'm going to use the tab key. Because tab to transients is turned on, it's going to automatically go over here to this kick drum and see what it did. It went ahead and found the transient. It was pretty close, not 100% on, but close enough, right? Hit Command E and cut it right there. So let's do that one more time. If I click over here, it's going to go to each of my drum hits. I hit Command E to cut it, and I select this part right here. Right, and that's a perfect loop. It sounds, if we count along to it, if we listen to it, it sounds like a perfect loop, okay? I'm gonna get rid of the second half over here. Now, this is my perfect loop, but remember, this loop is at 126. The tempo of the song I'm trying to fit it into is at 120. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my trim tool into TCE mode. I can click on the arrow here, or I can hit F6 a couple times until it's gonna cycle through. Now it's in TCE mode, and I'm just gonna put this into grid mode and drag it over like that. Boom. And you can hear it slowed it down. Let's listen to the original one. Let's listen to this new one. Right? And it sounds pretty good, but it doesn't sound perfect. Now you might be going, Tony, what are you talking about? It sounds perfect to me. And it sounds probably good enough, but let's see if we can get it sounding perfect by using one of the other algorithms. What I'm hearing is a little bit of change in the sound of the snare drum when it hits. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here to drums. Let's go to drums rhythmic and just see what this does to it. Hit OK, and I'm gonna drag it over like this. So now let's listen to it. Meh. The snare drum is nice and snappy, whereas when I do it like this, it's taking that transient and making it go too far. Now this might be a time when actually, let's see here. Oh, it's not. My Pro Tools is broken. That's what's happening. Oh, and that's probably what's happening with the vocals too. My Pro Tools and this M1 chip are not playing well together. That's what's happening. Because when I hit OK and I go back, check this out. It's not changing it. That is what was happening before. All right, well, take my word for it. We can make it sound better if we could actually get Pro Tools to work right. Unfortunately, because of this computer I'm using, Pro Tools is not working right. It's not Pro Tools' fault. It's because I'm using it in a way which it's not happy with right now. So apologies that we're not going to be able to hear that, but on your computer at home, you can do the same thing. You can get a beat loop, you can take it in, and you can drag it. Let's go over these steps one more time. So I've got my let's put this up. I got my counting, my metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, sounds great. Let's drag in my drum loop. This is the 126 drum loop. So I'm gonna drag this in. Let's go ahead and solo this out. Turn off that metronome. You can hear it's a little bit faster than the tempo of my song. Let's play it with the metronome so we can hear it, or we could just play with the counting and everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? It's not super noticeable right away, but if you let it play long enough, you start to hear it. Well, I'm going to take this drum loop and I'm going to make this drum loop be the same tempo as my song. What I want to do is I want to find my one tempo, my beat, like my one bar, and cut it at the one bar. So let's listen to this by itself. Sometimes it's easy to listen to stuff without anything like a click track or whatever. So let's count along with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, cool. I'm gonna get this bar 4 here and grab that using my tab to transient, zoom in, make sure we're good. Yeah, it looks like we're pretty good. If I wanted to be super pedantic about it, I would just put that right there, cut that, get rid of all this. And now let's drag it over so it's right over here on this bar 6. Put my grid into grid mode and drag it over. Boop. There we go. The reason why I made it so long is because I actually like all this like weird, the shifts and the harmonics on this, like that little bass thing on the bottom there. I liked that, so I want to keep that. Let's go ahead and listen to it with a click track. Cool. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Sounds okay. I really, if I was using this in a production, I wouldn't be super satisfied with that. I'm gonna actually show you how to do that with Elastic Audio. Hopefully the Elastic Audio works better, but we're running into problems that I really can't do anything about right now. This is like, I can't change this. I can't really fix this. So, but that kind of takes you through it. So let's just take a look at that here. A little bit, some more notes here in the TCE. Basically, we can use it for elongating or shortening certain sounds. It's not great for correcting the timing within loops, but it's good for correcting the overall tempo of the loop, meaning it's good for just moving the whole entire clip. It's also really good for elongating or shortening specific sounds such as cymbals or explosions. Let's go ahead and grab an explosion. No, let's not do that. Let's grab a let's grab like a downward kind of type of sound, like a drop. Oh, I got this Slate Nash thing yesterday. I downloaded that. It sounds super, super dope. I went for my birthday. I went and downloaded a few things. And we can take a look at that some other time. It's super cool. It's also super weird. It's good for film scorey stuff and like weird electronic music. All right, so let's go in here and go to our sample libraries and go in here and go to Sample Phonics. No, not Sample Phonics. Sample Magic. And this one in here has some good drum hits and stuff in it. Ultimate Effects. Let's grab a Impacts and Bombs. So let's see. Oh, these are my Ableton files. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to take this one and drag it in, my impact. Boop. There's my impact. Where is it? Where'd it go? There it is down at the bottom. And make all this stuff smaller again. And let's drag it in right here into the beginning of everything. So I'm just going to put that in there. Boop. So there it is. Turn off my Elastic Audio. And here, turn the volume down so it's not killing us. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, turn this off here. Make you nice and low. There you go. Okay, cool. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So right now this thing lasts the whole entire everything, right? So we don't really want it to do that. We want to, let's say we want it to only last these first 2 bars. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it right here. Let's cut it right here, yeah. I'm going to get rid of the end of it. And I'm going to take this whole thing, I'm just going to drag it this way. And now if we listen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? And there we go. It went ahead and it made the whole thing shorter. So let's go ahead and here, let me just get rid of this window here. Okay. So I used my TCE tool. I cut it. So I got rid of the second half of it right here using my selector tool, Command E, deleted the second half because we don't need the whole thing, right? And then I grabbed this part here and I just drag it over here to the left until it's as long as I want it to be. And now if we listen to it, oops. Okay, that sounds pretty good. I want to put a fade on it. There we go. Nice. That sounds pretty good. Before it was this long, which sounds pretty cool, but I don't really want it to be that long. So I wanted to keep all that information in there, but I just want it to be faster. So I'm going to drag it over, put a fade on it like this, adjust the end of the fade. There we go. Nice. Let's listen to it with everything in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sounds pretty cool, right? So that's what we can use the TCE tool for, is making like cymbal smashes and things like this, impacts, risers, longer or shorter. I sometimes use them for the ends of words. Let's use this word 3 here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3, I can take this and here, let's turn this down even a little bit more and cut the end of 3. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to cut this 3 here, 3, and stretch. Let's grab this, delete that end part here, and drag that over like that. Now it's going to sound weird because remember, my Pro Tools is not actually allowing me to change the TCE algorithm. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And with the music and stuff in there, it actually doesn't sound that bad. Let's take this impact here. Oops, I don't want to delete you. I want to delete just this part here. And let's take this and flip it around and make it have a riser type of thing going on. Let's take it and I'm gonna, whoops, yeah, that's fine. Take this and I'm gonna reverse this using an audio suite. Reverse that, come on. I said reverse. Oh, really? Okay, I see what's happening. It's just all kinds of glitches, I think. Let's see. I think it maybe put a reverse in here, though. There we go. Oh, it did do a reverse. It just didn't show it to me in my window here. So there we go. Oh, interesting. Okay, there we go. Cool. So we got that. Awesome. So it's going to rise and fall. Let's go ahead and listen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, why didn't you loop? I know why you didn't loop. There we go. And let's take this 9 and do the same. Let's make this one long as well. Put it in slip mode. And this is like something to aspire to, is like working, you know, nice and fast like this. I'm going to take this end part here and I'm going to move this over like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this till it gets to this part over here, and it's going to have the ending is going to be the original tempo again. Like that. Just bounce. There we go. Cool. 1. Okay, and let's listen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. Oh, that's 8. Sorry, not 9. 1, 2. It works. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, cool. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can hear this little pop in here. We want to get rid of that pop over here. And we can do it with a crossfade. I'm not sure if the crossfade is going to work. Now, when I'm doing what I'm about to do, I really want to use my regular trim tool. I'm just going to stretch this over like this and then do a crossfade here. Let's see what that sounds like. 8. Yep, that 8. Great, sounds fine. Let's go ahead and do that again. Let's listen to it. Let's listen to it with everything. Pull that down a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. Okay, a couple things are going on here. First of all, you can see how we're using the TCE tool to stretch things out to make things shorter. And you also saw how I cut the end of this with the T here and stretch the middle part to make it longer, but you keep the transients short if you can. So the beginning part I cut it, the end part I cut it. Then I used crossfading to make it smooth so there's no pops and clicks. I used crossfading here on the beginning of the 8 and the end of the 8. And then you also notice that when you bury sounds, they don't sound as weird. We can no longer hear those artifacts. I've got enough stuff going on right now that you can't really hear that 8 sounding as weird as it does. Let's solo that out and listen to just the 8, or just the counting rather. 1, 2, 3, 4. That 3, you can hear it sounds weird, right? Yeah, it does. Here, let's go back. Let's put a little fade on the end of the 3. Like that. There we go. Let's like that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. Okay. You can hear the 8 sounds weird, the 3 sounds weird. But if I go ahead and turn everything back on so we can hear all the music. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1. It no longer sounds as weird. So we're able to we're masking the weirdness with all the other sounds. Cool. I think that brings us to the end of our TCE stuff. Let's do this. Let's take a break. Let's make it the end of the video as well. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. And what we're going to do